Hi folks, I had said that I was going to do this video about what I've been saying to you about not getting too attached to the outcome with the Aries North Node eclipses and this arc that is taking us to the end of the first week of June of next year. And here it is. I think it's an important video to do, so I'm glad that I'm finally getting to it. Really, a lot of this just has to do with how it is that the North Node works. So as a reminder, the North Node eclipses are going through the sign of Aries. They started about March, April of 2023. And the only reason why is I think the eclipse itself was in April 19th of 2023. The reason why I include March is I know that in March and April, we had two new moons in Aries. The first one in March was a regular new moon. The second new moon was the new moon solar eclipse in Aries in 2023. And so depending on whenever it is that you think that the eclipse started to, it's doubtful that you're going to have a new moon in Aries and 28 days later another new moon in Aries, which is also an eclipse, but the eclipse is going to have an altogether completely different meaning than the first new moon. So I'll say March, April of 2023. And we have three solar eclipses in Aries, no lunar eclipse in Aries. April the 19th of last year, April the 8th of this year, 2024, and March the 29th of next year. And with the solar eclipse, if there is a corresponding lunar eclipse in the same sign, or even a corresponding lunar eclipse in the opposite sign where the south node eclipses are taking place, I'll make allowances from an eclipse perspective for that eclipse to exercise its influence for about 6 months later. And solar eclipses do. But for me, with the solar eclipse, the 2 months after the solar eclipse brings up themes related to that solar eclipse. So if March 29th of 2025 is the last of the Aries North Node eclipses, May 29th, the week before and week after, could have an important connection to that particular eclipse. And the week after May 29 takes us to the end of the first week of June. So I'm saying the end of the first week of June. Now, that doesn't mean that that eclipse isn't going to exercise its influence till later in the year, as solar eclipses do. But by the time we get to later in the year, the eclipses in the Pisces-Virgo axis are going to start to take greater prominence. Both the eclipses in the second half of the year, the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse, are on that Pisces-Virgo axis. And so it's more likely that the new moon solar eclipse in Aries on March the 29th will have some sort of a more natural fizzling out or ending by the time we get to the full moon in Aries later on in 2025. But in terms of the intensity of its impact, it's likely that by the end of the first week of June, a certain arc will be done. Now, it's not as if, and you should know this astrologically, and you should know this also with general stuff that you see on Instagram or on social media, when you get posts that are kind of clickbaity. And what I mean by that is kind of these doom, oh my God, such and such thing will happen by such and such date, and lightning will strike in it. So this kind of full moon and that kind of full moon, and did you know, and this is likely to happen, and that. Life goes on, and it's not as if there aren't certain days when things don't happen. But the likelihood that something has not been brewing for a while, if something dramatic happens, is high. Things have a tendency, even when they become sudden or dramatic. It's a little bit like the Tower card, you know. The things are pulling apart at the seams for a while, and we may not correct things, or we may not get to a certain point with them, or whatever it is, and then they fall apart, and we think, oh my God, on this date this thing happened, but it's been building for a while. So it's not as if they end at the first week of June, all of a sudden there's going to be an energetic shift, and we're just going to, I don't know, turn into completely different people, and the energy of the world, of the planet, will be completely different. It happened with Y2K. Eclipses come and go 4 times a year, at least, you know, typically. Sometimes there may be more, and we're coming up to some years where there will be more. But you get through a solar eclipse, and you get through a lunar eclipse, and we survive them. And by the time the end of the first week of June comes, there are a few other things that will also work their ways out. Jupiter will be done by June the 8th with his transit through Gemini, and will enter the sign of Cancer. the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on April the 20th, and any changes related to that will be done rolling themselves out by the end of the first week of June, actually a little bit sooner, but I'm kind of using that. So there's certainly an energetic shift by that time. Mars is retrograde, will be done by the middle of April, and Mars will pretty much be ready to make his way through the sign of Leo by that time in June, maybe another week after, and Mars is done through Leo. So there are a number of things that energetically, and as I continue to do videos till then, there are certain things that I'm going to talk about repeatedly, and as a reminder that by the end of the first week of June, we're going to start talking about different things. But it's not going to be, like, oh my God, June the 7th is here, and I have reached a destination, or June the 8th is here, and I'm expecting it to look and feel completely different from June the 7th. That's not quite how it works. The other thing I just said that I think is more relevant to what we're talking about is this idea of reaching a destination. The North Node creates a sense of, the North Node does create opportunity, and things do happen with the North Node. Now, I was going to say the North Node creates a sense of desire, a longing, a sense of calling, a sense of, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm trying to do. This is where I'm trying to go. Oh my God, this is going to work out. Oh my God, it's going to be this. This feels right. This is what I'm trying to do. Sometimes when we talk about things like I wish, or I want to, or this is why, when it has a kind of a sense of risk and adventure and rightness, often that has to do with this kind of North Node feeling. It can also have to do with Jupiter, sometimes Neptune in kind of tricky ways. But with the North Node, it has this kind of caller feeling. But the North Node also does deliver opportunities. But the North Node, as one astrologer said to me a while ago, when I had a reading with him, and I found this to be true, does have a tendency to, as he said, promise more than he delivers. Now, let me be clear that the North Node does deliver. So part of the challenge with the North Node is that you may have a longing to go in a certain direction, and the North Node does seem to be meeting you on your path or your journey there. What do I mean by that? Let's say, whatever it is, it isn't just completely a question of, I want to do this, I think I want to go in this direction, I think I want to explore this, I think this is the right direction for me. Things show up that make you feel like the universe is responding. When the North Node eclipses go over the 10th house, you do get career-related opportunities, I find, that are exciting and interesting and different from what you may have had before, and actually allow you to look back at them and think, well, I checked this box, I checked this box, I checked this box. What the North Node tends to do is, as it delivers, it also gives you a sense of what the reality of that situation might actually look like. And so part of the promising more than he delivers tends to be that you get what you want, but what you get doesn't turn out to be exactly what you thought it would be. And the shininess around what is offered turns out to be real, which means that it comes with its challenges, it comes with its disappointments, it comes with its reality checks. And as I like to say to clients, and the reason why the North Node in the 10th house, I'm bringing it up because it comes up most with those set of eclipses, which I think Cancer rising people are going through right now, right? Yeah. And Gemini rising people are still going through the 11th house North Node eclipses, but the North Node eclipses are moving into the 10th house, starting to move into the 10th house. Sorry, I paused there because I was thinking of Kamala Harris's chart as a Gemini rising chart. the opportunities may be delivered. You may even during the course of North Node eclipses take steps to get towards what you want to get to. But it is in that process of moving towards something, in that process of experiencing what the North Node has to offer, that two things happen. One, you gain the experience that helps you grow. Because with the North Node, we are fulfilling what it is that we are here to learn and experience as part of this incarnation, or at least that's the theory goes for certain astrologers, including myself. And we're leaning into the right strategies associated with the part of the chart that the North Node is transiting. So one of the two things that happens is we get to lean into and grow and expand our horizons and develop muscles that are weak and develop experiences we have not had and that have a sense of yearning and that have a sense of, oh, I want to try this, I want to experience this, I want to move in this direction, etc., etc., etc. That does happen. And it's not just, as I said, I want to go somewhere. The universe seems to come through to meet you, to create certain opportunities that feel like, oh, this is going to be what gets me from A to Z. This is going to be what gets me from A to Z. This is what gets me from A to Z. The second thing that happens with these opportunities is there's also this, oh, this is what this is really like. I got what I wanted, but this is what it's really like to navigate and live in this on a day-to-day basis. Now, we can sometimes think that when we head to something, we are heading to a destination. And the fact of the matter is, in life, there is no destination. The chart keeps moving. It's kind of similar to this idea of this Wheel of Fortune card. It's a circle that keeps turning. You could have a really great breakthrough. You could get the job of your dreams. You could even work that job for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but chances are during the course there will be ups and downs and sideways, and chances are you might experience something really big and feel like you've gotten, and then the chart keeps moving. Something happens that changes the nature of your day-to-day existence. There is no destination. The chart keeps moving. And one of the things that keeps the chart moving is that those things that disappoint us or give us a reality check or make it seem like, oh, this is really what these opportunities are like. This idea that the North Node delivered, but not quite completely what it promised. And it's because what the North Node shows to us that has this kind of sense of yearning feels shiny and perfect. It feels like, oh my God, if I get to this, I will have arrived. It doesn't have to be arrived as in, oh, I'm going to get the Nobel Prize for this, that, or the other, or I'm going to get $1 million. But it feels like, oh, once I'm there, I will be leading the right life. That has more of a North Node feeling. Come this way. This is the right life for you. And we get some of what the North Node delivers. Hopefully we take advantage of it and hopefully lean into whatever it is that the North Node is bringing us. We think, oh my God, it's going to be this. It's going to be, and we deal with the reality of what comes in, and the disappointment or the reality aspect of getting what we want then propels us to keep moving. I always wanted to be this. I got that. I hated this about it. I have two choices. I can now grow so that I can figure out how to deal with those things that have disappointed me or that I know are real about this situation. And the second thing is I can propel what has disappointed me to move towards what I want next. But with the North Node, there's always the sense of, this is what I want next. This is what I need to do. This is what I need to get to. And the chart keeps moving. You could always have wanted to work in a certain kind of institution or a certain company or a high-tech company or something, and you get there and you realize that there's certain things you like and you get to check off certain things, but there's certain things about it that you don't like. Chances are what the North Node is saying is, I put the carrot at the end of the stick. I beckoned you here so that you could experience two things. One, this is what the reality of this is like, and you have not yet developed certain muscles. So understand what the reality of the situation is and make a choice. Are you going to hunker down and learn how to deal with those aspects of this experience that are new to you and real to you and may not have the shininess of the glitter and tinsel that beckoned you in this direction? Are you going to start to get real with what the reality is of, in the example I gave you, working in a high-tech firm? It's general, but let's say someone wanted to work, I'm not going to name any names, but So there's the real growth. The real growth comes from, either in the moment, if we're spiritually aware, or you have encountered a video like this, either in the moment, you're able to take stock of the situation and go, I better get wise to how it is that this stuff actually works. So what the politics is like, or what the this is like, and what is that is like, and not get thrown by it. So this is what the reality is like about these things that I desired. This is where I have to measure up some more. This is what I need to be able to deal with. This is where I need to be able to roll with this or roll with that. Very often, because it's the North Node and those muscles are not developed, we get to a place of, oh my God, I absolutely hate this. I can't be bothered. This is not my this, and this is not my that. And if that is the case, then the second option that the North Node is saying is, all right, then where to from here? You thought you wanted this. I gave you some aspect of that. You get to check it off your list. Now, where do you want to go from here? And with the North Node, it always connects you to the sense of, you know what? What I really always wanted is this. We're going to pause for the siren, applauding what I just said. So the disappointment with the North Node leads to, it's not as if we're having to compromise on something. If anything, the North Node continues to help us expand. You don't have to give up what you liked and what you wanted to go after. You don't. You can just make a mental checklist and say, oh my God, the next time I get around to doing that again, these are the things I did not like, or these are the things that I threw me, or these are the things I know now, and I will just have to approach this from a place of greater experience. This is how I'm going to deal with this. This is my philosophy around this. This is how I'm going to be spiritually stronger and more aware, and therefore take actions that are right. This is how I'm going to manage any aspect of this that could potentially be disappointing. I'm not going to get thrown by it. I'm going to enjoy it more. I'm going to get what I want out of it. But I don't have to discard what the North Node brought me completely. At the same time, the disappointment may put you in a space where you think, well, that wasn't exactly what I wanted. So where do I go from here? And the surprising thing with the North Node is that where people want to go next, always, in my experience, tends to have this kind of, you know what? I've always wanted to, the real part of me is, and it's like, well, if this was the real part of you, why didn't you articulate this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or 20 years ago? It's because these North Node eclipses were going to give you a certain experience that were going to put you in touch with how you're going to expand next. And you will recognize likely where it is that you want to go next, because it will be part of what you have always known is authentic to you. I always wanted to work in a high-tech company, and this is what I like about it, and this is what I don't like about it. But it's making me think, what I always wanted to do was have my own startup. It doesn't mean you didn't want to work for a high-tech company. You did. But you were not still completely in touch with something that you may have always known anyway, that, at some point I'd like to have. So the disappointing aspect of what you makes you think, well, this is where I'll go next. And as it is with any destination, you'll go there next. You'll deal with whatever it is that is real about that, and then have to make these choices again. Do I hunker down and stay here and grow here and deal with certain things, or do I keep moving forward? The chart keeps moving forward. And it's a combination of both those things. As I said, you don't completely discard what you've incorporated into your experiences, into your resume, into your life experiences. You become wiser. But then you also move forward to refining what is on your vision board. Your needs change. What you need immediately changes. And when the North Node moves into the 8th house from the 9th house, or when it moves into the 12th house from the 1st house, especially the 12th house to the 1st house, the energy difference can be quite jarring if you don't know what to expect, because it is a surprising and considerable shift. All of a sudden, plans that feel very yang, all of a sudden the eclipse is going to a much more yin part of the chart. You're just like, what the? So if you are an Aries rising, you need to be prepared for what the change in energy is like from an Aries set of North Node eclipses, 1st house, to a Pisces North Node eclipses, 12th house, which is occurring right now. If you're a Leo rising, be prepared for what the 9th house Aries eclipses are going to turn into energetically as they move into the 8th house eclipses. The bigger change and shift is between the 1st and the 12th house. And there are a few different things that this could mean, but I'm not gonna get into that here. It's just we're talking about this. Why am I bringing this up to you right now? I'm bringing this up to you because since March, April of last year, the Aries eclipses have beckoned us to move in a certain direction. I've experienced this, and what's interesting is that as I've been talking about it more and more and more and more charts that I've read, I find this to be resonant. The Aries Libra eclipses have a North Node solar eclipse, are primarily solar eclipses, so they have an expansiveness to them. The Pisces Virgo eclipses are primarily lunar eclipses, so they may have a sense of a theme of completion associated with them. But because we're dealing with these solar eclipses predominantly on the Aries-Libra axis, things need to get done. We need to move towards things. And since March, April of last year, especially as the months rolled on, April, May, June, July, August, you've heard me say this a lot of times, we may have wanted to move towards a desired direction. What's more, the universe may have met us and said, okay, if this is what you want, I'll give you this. I'll give you this. I'll give you this. But then comes this kind of mind fudge quality that the North Node eclipses have, where you start to move towards it, and then September, October of last year to March of this year, you may have gotten, oh, this is what I need to release in the Libra part of the chart. I'm not ready to go there. All of a sudden, you're stymied. You're stopped from moving forward. Then April, May, June, July, as we head to August, again, things may come up that make us feel like, oh, okay, there's a path that's leading me to this direction. But then by the time we get to August Mercury retrograde, we get to the October 2nd solar eclipse of this year, we're back in the land of, oh, what do I need to release? I'm still not getting to where I want to get to. And now here we are between about September the 2nd of this year to the end of the first week of June next year, with one more Aries solar eclipse on March the 29th, while Mercury and Venus are retrograde. So many of us are really going to feel that eclipse gather momentum after the middle to the end of April as we head towards the end of the first week of June. Now we're in this final push of, well, can I get to that desired end goal? That has, since March of last year, looked like this for me, looked like this outcome. And here's where I say, do not get too attached to the outcome. Because it is in the process of moving towards that outcome that you may learn things that help you get to the real outcome that the Aries eclipses are trying to get you and trying to put you in touch with. So if you have wanted to move from, I don't know, I'm making this up, Memphis to New Orleans for some reason to pursue a certain type of work. You don't want to work in country, you want to work in jazz. I'm being so stereotypical and I'm just making this up. And you've tried, and you've tried, and you've tried, and it hasn't worked out. And you're like, well, I'm watching this Abi guy on YouTube, and he's telling me to release what I need to release. I think I need to get ready to leave Memphis and release what I need to by the end of the first week of December and be ready and be lithe. And maybe by the end of the first week of June, I'll end up in New Orleans. Now this Abi guy is here to tell you, don't get too attached to that outcome. Why? What if the outcome is both are available to you? What if in this process you realize, because you've been learning something about New Orleans during this time as you've been trying to head towards it, that makes you think, but you know, there are certain things about Memphis I really actually like and that could work for me that I have. And there's certain things about New Orleans that I really want to get to, but there's certain things about it that I'm not entirely crazy about. Don't get so egotistically attached to, this is what I want, this is what I want to get to, this is what I want it to look like. Be open to taking in the experiences that the North Node eclipses are giving you and get in touch with what might start to happen between now and the end of the first week of June. But even now, is you might start to think, it's not so much about the location of the destination or the type of work as much as it is brought just sort of holistically. I'm going to give up country and I'm going to do jazz, for example. It might be that you realize I'm seeing this binary when I don't need to. And more importantly, for me, it might be about the nature of the project. And so the question becomes, how do I open myself up for being mobile enough? Now, I'm not going to say that this is going to apply to every single one of you, okay? Some of you may actually get to that destination where it is still November the 20th. It is not the end of the first week of June. It is not the middle to the end of April. We don't know what is coming. Mercury still hasn't gone retrograde yet in Sagittarius and delivered its reality check there. Mars still is not retrograde between Cancer and Leo, so there's that has to be worked out. Venus and Mercury are still not retrograde between Pisces and Aries, so there's that needs to be worked out till the middle of April, so there's lots to go. All I'm saying is right now, if you are on your way to going and reaching your destination and all is well and you're clear about it, bully for you, go for it. But if you're at this place where you're thinking, I've actually learned a lot since March, April of last year because I've been thinking that this is what I wanted, this is what I want to get to, or whatever it is. And now I'm thinking what it has actually opened me up to is recognizing and realizing that, listen to my language, what I have always wanted to do is this. So I should not be so hasty to get fixated on what I have thought the outcome is and remain open between now and the end of the first week of June to design the outcome that is optimal for me based on everything that I have learned through these North Node in Aries, South Node in Libra eclipses that have been going on since March, April of 2023. I may have thought that they were saying, this is what I need to do and this is what I'm moving towards. And the universe said, no, not yet. No, not yet. Or the universe may have said, actually, not quite. Actually, not quite. But go for it. I'll meet you. I'll give you the opportunity to go and spend 3 weeks in New Orleans for a project. And you're going to think, oh my God, this is a sign. I'm going to move to New Orleans. I'll give you the opportunity for something else to come in that pulls you there a few times. In that process, you are going to learn a few things. Now that we're getting to that final stretch, be open to taking in what you know today, as opposed to what you knew in March, April, May of 2023. And say, okay, is that still the outcome for me that I've been chasing since March, April 2023? Or have I learned enough that I've actually realized through this process, learned, incorporated what I have liked, what I don't like, what I want to move towards, what kind of life I want to live, what kind of work I want to do, where it is that I actually want to live, what is the right thing for me. Because sometimes, who is the right person for me? Do I actually want to be married or not? I mean, I'm thinking of all sorts of examples. Do I really want to move to the West Coast? Do I really want to move to the East Coast? Do I really want to do this kind of work? Do I really want to join a nonprofit? I've been chasing that since March, April of last year. Be open to being in a place where you might be increasingly more connected to, surprisingly to you, what sort of a life you really want to create related to the North Node eclipses in the Aries part of your chart. Don't be surprised if since March to now, things start to shift in a way that you go, oh, actually, what I really want is, and I only know that because the North Node eclipses gave me the opportunity to start to head in a certain direction. Did not fulfill my desire completely. I learned through that process and gained a certain amount of experience and insight around what works for me or what doesn't. With the North Node, as things are happening that feel like they're answering to your alignment, things feel and seem very shiny. Oh my God, this is happening. Oh my God, I could do this. Oh my God, it could be that. Oh my God, this is going to happen next. Oh my God, this is going to come through. And the universe is like, all right. It's very similar to part of what I think Mercury retrograde does, honestly, is that it brings our North Node fantasies down to earth. And we're heading to a Mercury retrograde now, November 26th to December the 15th. I think part of what a Mercury retrograde does is says, it is time for Mercury to take over. I'm reversing because I need to get some facts over to you. Really, you're so ready to give up Memphis and country music and you want to move exclusively to, really? First and foremost, this is not going to be the timeline. Secondly, here's something about New Orleans that I need you to consider. Or, by the way, that thing that you were chasing is not going to be yours. Not it. That is classic Mercury retrograde. And by the way, not it, and you're in a bit of a fix, so let me give you something that you can latch onto to help you out of there. So that we can keep working in this process of you getting clear about what is it. And when you hit on that, it's like a plumb line that goes right to your core. And you feel that pendulum or that plumb line hit that water. It's like, oh, you're putting me in touch with this authentic part of myself. Why was I designing an outcome that would have limited me? Or that might have created other problems? You may still end up in that place or that location by the person I'm talking about hypothetically, whoever this person is who wants to move to New Orleans, who doesn't exist, may still end up in New Orleans by the middle of May, by the end of the first week of June. May give up whatever they've got in Memphis. But based on what you know, the reason why it hasn't happened is you have got to be clear about what needs to be in place for you to be able to do that. You have to be clear about what you're designing and what you're opening yourself up for. The North Node eclipses have an expansive quality. They do deliver opportunities. They do. In the part of the chart where they're occurring. It's not just in your mind. It's not just, I want to move to New Orleans and nothing happens. If that feeling is right and it's aligned with the North Node, I'm willing to put money on the fact that opportunities will come up that will either get you there or move you forward there. And if it is the right thing, remember that what has to happen tends to happen with ease. You show up and you do your best. I'm not saying anything here that is, these days, everybody's a spiritual advisor. When the fact of the matter is that everything that actually needs to be said, that can be considered spiritual advice, has been said a long time ago. So what I'm about to say is not special or specific, but I have found this to be true. We show up to the lives in the best way we know how, with the right intentions and with a certain amount of discipline. We show up, we do our best, we meet the opportunities Spirit is giving to us, we keep an open mind and an open heart. We do what we're supposed to, and then we release the attachment to the outcome. We don't chase after it. We don't put it above us. We don't exalt it. We do what we need to do, and then we let it go. And if it's meant to happen, and you by now have experienced this with jobs, you have experienced this with some, I have no doubt. Isn't it interesting when we get that job or when something has to happen, it happens with ease and it feels like there's so many things that I've been trying to do and banging my head on. And these things that are meant to happen, I show up, I do my best. I dress up properly for an interview. It's not as if I'm not showing up to do my best, but it's not as if I don't show up to do my best for other things that I'm banging my head against. But for the ones that are meant to me, it really feels like my hand barely touches the doorknob and the doorknob flies open. It's just like, all right, bingo, you got it, come this way. And you're waiting for that ease. But the question is, in the process of finding it, what else is it putting you in touch with? To be specific, what I think is possible for a lot of us in this particular phase as we are trying to deal with things and release certain things that are stagnant, especially in the Libra part of the chart where the South Node eclipses are currently the most active. That is the most active eclipse right now. October the 2nd, we had a new moon solar eclipse in Libra. It's a South Node eclipse. Something in the Libra part of the chart, that house needs to be released. We were made aware of what was needed to be released between the middle of October of last year, 23, to March 24th, 25th of this year. And now, since October the 2nd, and with resonance to the week before and after December the 2nd, and this will start to dwindle more and more as we get to the full moon in Libra in the first quarter of next year. I don't know when that is. I'm not going to look it up. Whatever needs to be released needs to be released. And sometimes it's not a literal release. It's not a releasing something material. Sometimes it is releasing our attachment to something. It is, however, releasing what is stagnant. And that does not mean that you release something physically because this astrologer said something needs to be released. So I'm going to now go ahead and release the only roof over my head that I do have and then go off on the street and be, no, it's not releasing something physically always. It's releasing sometimes you're releasing an attachment to how you expect people to be. You're releasing what is outmoded. It could be energetic. It could be things that you know you're no longer going to need. That are no longer going to be part of your journey moving forward. But nothing needs to be released in a rash manner. And be careful of the nodes and the eclipses for this. If you don't have money for rent for next month and you hate your job, by all means, don't release the job if it's giving you money for rent. Figure out what you're going to do when you're going to do it, when it happens with a greater amount of ease. But October 2nd, December 2nd, what is it that needs to be released in the Libra part of the chart that allows you to move in the direction that you want to move in? It could have a material component to it. But underpinning that is something energetic. what is stagnant, what is done, what feels, for lack of a better word, dead or barren, what may have served a purpose before but no longer serves a purpose. And it doesn't have to be huge and dramatic. Sometimes, as I said, it can be things. For the person who's trying to move from Memphis to New Orleans, they don't have to give up their Memphis apartment if they don't know where they're going or how they're going to afford it in New Orleans. It could just mean that they're decluttering. It could mean that they know whether they stay in Memphis or New Orleans or move to Los Angeles or do whatever they're going to do, they don't need certain things and they need to feel lighter. And they need to get rid of certain things. That way, if they stay on in Memphis, they're happier. They feel like this environment is no longer barren. This environment has somehow been rejuvenated by releasing what needs to be released. But be open to, at this stage of the game, whatever it is that you have learned about where you thought you wanted to go since March, April, May, June, July of last year. And ask yourself today, is it the same outcome that you want? Or has following that outcome and availing of the experiences that you got from following that outcome taught you something or brought you even closer to something that feels truer to the way you want to design your life? I mean, I cannot emphasize that enough. With the North Node and the work that the North Node eclipses will do, they will put you in touch with something that you will recognize. And you'll be surprised and you'll think, why didn't I get in touch with this before? Someone who's been writing poetry may all of a sudden realize, oh, I've been chasing this and chasing that and it hasn't come through. And also today, I chased this so heavily in the middle of 23, but today I feel like what it's really put me in touch with is, I think I want to start working on my novel. Someone's been writing fiction. They might say, oh, you know what? I've always wanted to work in a publishing company. It's not an excuse. It's gonna feel, you're gonna recognize, it's gonna feel true to you. With the North Node, it always boils down to language like, I've always wanted to. And you may have thought that what you always wanted to some extent, this may have been true. To some extent, this person may have always wanted to live in New Orleans, in which case, don't give up that dream. But does it have to mean that you give up something in order to go somewhere? Could it not mean that you're open to various opportunities in different locations, and so you open yourself up or choose a lifestyle or give yourself the flexibility or move towards a certain flexibility where you can be where you need to be for the nature of the project, depending on what this process is putting you in touch with? What have you learned about pursuing things in the Aries North Node direction that have been inspiring and that have been challenging and disappointing and a reality check? And today, on November the 20th, 2024, just as we're getting ready to head into 4 retrogrades back to back, Mercury, Mars, then Mercury and Venus, ask yourself, do I still want the same thing? Or in the pursuit of this, if I were to be really honest with myself, I'm not that sure. And what it's really put me in touch with is, I think this is what I want to design. And this is what I want. Because I liked certain aspects of what the North Node was beckoning me towards. And you might find that the North Node in Aries was trying to connect you to something truer and even deeper than what you thought it was connecting you to in 2023. You might find that the North Node in Aries, wherever Aries sits in your chart, was trying to pull you to something that you would not have been able to articulate without these stops and starts and stops and starts and stops and starts since March, April of 2023. And the recognition and the realization, the pursuing of certain directions, pursuing of certain opportunities, feeling stymied, paying attention to what needs to be released. And in the process, you may have realized, oh, this thing that I want to get to, I like this, I don't like this. Here are my red flags, here are my cautions. And as I examine all this, this is actually what I want to do. Now, if it's the same as it's always been, then it's the same as it's always been. Give it a shot. It's not going to be as simple as getting there. It's going to be a back and forth quality with all these retrogrades. And I did a whole video on this arc that takes us to the end of the first week of June. I'll place a link to it at the end of this video. But if things are shifting, be careful of becoming so attached to an outcome that you've been attached to since March, April 23, that you don't question it. And in questioning it, if something else feels, I'm reminded a little bit, for those of you who know Gone with the Wind, I'm reminded a little bit of someone like a Scarlett O'Hara who's been chasing Ashley Wilkes this entire movie only to find out at the end that it was Rhett Butler who she wanted all along, or who was right for all along. And all of a sudden it's just like, Now, again, it's not that much, it's not that kind of, but if this resonates, you'll realize that going after what you thought you wanted since March, April of 2023 and finding yourself in November, you may go, oh, I'm so glad I didn't just make that leap. I'm so glad I didn't just make that binary. I'm so glad that I didn't just shut the door on something to go into something and rush into something, only to find, because now I know what I would have found, and now I can really pay attention to what is it that I really want in the Aries part of my chart that I should try and now create by the end of the first week of June of next year. And whatever comes through with these will come through with these, and you can make your choices from there. If you still need to move to New Orleans completely and that's what feels right to you, go for it. But chances are, at this point in time, you are learning and thinking and realizing it's the last of 3 solar eclipses in Aries. You might really be being put in touch with what the Aries North Node eclipses have been trying to lead you to all along. Okay, I hope you found this useful. I think it's a very important thing to think about at this point in time for those for whom this resonates. Be careful with the nodes, be careful with the eclipses. Keep your financial and emotional security in view. Do not let the eclipses do a number on you where you just, like the fool, leap off the cliff. Sometimes this energy makes sense. It's more an archetypal energy. It's a desire, and it has its place. But no one wants to jump off a cliff with no... It's an archetypal, it's a spark. But be careful with the nodes and the eclipses that the spark doesn't make you just throw all caution to the wind, because the nodes will love that. And you'll have some protection, but it's going to be very uncomfortable. People talk a lot about the hero's journey, but people don't talk about, and it's so much fun to watch on the big screen or the small screen. But there is fighting certain dragons and trying to slay them is not nearly as glamorous as it may seem to us. And that doesn't mean that we can't get to what we want in a slightly more organized and a less chaotic manner. We can still honor the nodes. You have to honor that. You cannot, in 2024, unless you are really living in a very, very conservative society or family or setup where it's expected of you to act only in a certain way, you can no longer ignore the North Node, either in your natal chart or the North Node eclipses. Okay. If you would like me to take a look at your birth chart and do a reading for you, there are a couple of different options in terms of price points and duration. You can use the email address in the description box below. Email me there, I can get you the information. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Next to the subscribe button is a bell icon. Hover over that wiggly bell on top, click on that, you'll be notified when I do new videos. Thanks button at the bottom of this video, you can use that to contribute to the channel. You can also contribute to the channel at no cost to you by liking the video and or commenting on the video. Thank you to everyone who comments. I really appreciate it. It gives the video greater circulation on YouTube. Feel free to, if you find this content useful, feel free to share it. Tell people who might find the content useful, etc. And we leave it at that. There have been a few back-to-back videos the past 2 or 3 days, so I'll let you all catch up with everything that I've posted. I posted something on Saturn yesterday, which I think will be useful to some of you, if not most or all of us. And blah, 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 blah. And there'll clearly be more to follow. I think next, it's either going to be a video looking at, I think next I'm going to just do a quick refresh on Mercury going retrograde, but I don't know that I'm going to get to that video till the 22nd, which is fine because even though Mercury goes retrograde on the 25th, 26th, depending on where you are, I've been saying, think of Mercury going retrograde, get done with what you need to by the 22nd. The weekly overview I did for this week asked the question, what do you need to get done by the 22nd? So maybe focus on that over the next few days as well. All right, I hope you found this useful, and I will see you again in a couple of days. Take care.